Mutant intruder neutralized.
The name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember it.
All right, we're going to get started for our first interview for Momocon this morning. We have AJ. Make sure I'm pronouncing your last name.
Yeah, no, go. I want to hear it. I want to see what you got.
I have Locasio.
That's close. It's like the keyboard. Locasio, or like the watch. Yeah, Locasio.
That's why I was asked.
I like to hear people go Locasio, and I'm like, sure.
I feel good. I was.
You were really close. Yeah.
So let's have our first outlet to ask the first question.
First outlet.
Hello. Hi, Joshua Morales from Jantmore here, and huge fan of your work. And one reason for that is because you have such a phenomenal range. And I was wondering, how did you discover your range and have really honed it over the years?
Brute force. Because I started off with Marty McFly was like my first big thing in the Telltale game, and then it's hard when right out of the gate I was very, very lucky to do that game because it was the first thing I ever did, and then realizing it's like I kind of need to turn this into a career because this is really fun, and then just working on being like, I gotta work on other voices and other impressions and voice matches, and luckily I got an agent about a year, 2 years after that game, and they would just send auditions for like, we need a sound alike for Chris Pratt or Harrison Ford, and I would just do the auditions until it was like, okay, I think that sounds okay, and then once I started booking those, I was like, okay, cool, I can do this. But it took a long time, it wasn't like right away. But just brute force, listening to people's audio, like in the car, I'd listen to certain celebrities' voices, which sounds crazy, and then just realizing that I could sort of stretch and pull my voice in different ways. It took a while, but it was literally just like, almost like singing in the car, except I'm listening to people talk, which is kind of insane.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love your Harrison Ford.
Oh, thank you. Ooh, scruffy looking. Hello.
Hi, Mark from Blurredography. When you auditioned for X-Men '97, did you go in knowing you were auditioning for the role of Gambit, or was it kind of like a voice test and then you were surprised by who they were casting you for?
They sent a list, but it was all like in disguise. It was like Cyclops was named like Jim, and like Gambit was like Ryan or something. I don't remember the exact names, but they were trying to disguise it, and it had a secret code name. But the reference, there was like, try to copy this read, and it was Gambit from X-Men '92, and I was like, hold on. And then I looked in the lines, and it was all Gambit lines. I was like, okay. And then I looked through all the other ones, and I was like, okay, these are all X-Men. I think this might be an X-Men project. And so I sort of maybe asked around some friends that I know that work in adjacent to that, and they were like, yeah, just do Gambit. And I was like, okay. So I just did it as if it was a Gambit audition, and then it turned out to be what it is. And I was freaked out but excited. And then when I got brought in to do the callback, they told me, they're like, yeah, we're turning this into a show. So I was like, oh my God. And they revealed a little bit more once I like finally booked it, and they're like, yes, this is going to be a series. And so, but yeah, I went in just trying to do the best version of Gambit I could, and hoping and being nervous. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Okay, I'll go again.
Oh, sure, hey.
All right, since in the pre-show you mentioned that you were the voice actor for Zordon and Red Ranger in the Rita's Legacy game?
Rita's Rewind.
Rita's
Zordon, Alpha 5, and the Red Ranger.
Yes. First of all, Zordon and Alpha 5 are iconic characters within the Power Rangers universe. Obviously, they have very distinctive voice patterns. My question is it challenging voicing three different characters that have three different essence in the same project?
Yeah. It was tough because we didn't have. It's an indie game, or a smaller game essentially, and so they were like, we just need to find people that sound right. And I'm so used to doing voice matching that I just basically, I was helping with casting, but I was sending them to someone. So I was like, what do you guys think of this? And we had gotten a couple Zordons and stuff, and they were like, we're just using you. But it was challenging because Zordon is particularly, I believe he was the sound engineer when they did the show, and the way he sounds is very like Rangers. There's like a sort of weird kind of stilted way he talks, and then that effect that they add to it, we had to figure out what that was exactly, because it's not just a straight voice. They've deepened it, and there's a bit of an echo to it. And then Alpha 5, I mean, essentially, I did a bunch of different lines, but it was literally just, ay, 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 ay. It was like all they used. I think they only used the 2 ay, ay's. And then for the Red Ranger, it was just, I mean, I essentially just tried to do, because it's a game made by fans, for fans, where we're all just big nerds for the Rangers, so we were just kind of doing what our general impression of the Rangers are, as opposed to trying to do an exact voice match of any specific actor, being like, this is what the essence of the Red Ranger or the Green Ranger or the Yellow Ranger, just kind of a general feel, as opposed to being like, I'm doing this specific actor, despite the character names. We're just doing something that feels right. But yeah, it's hard. It's definitely challenging. I spent a lot of time, Zordon was the hardest one, was trying to find the right tone and the right amount of like, there's a stiffness to Zordon that's very hard to sort of nail down, because he's a floating head with a animated GIF for a mouth. So it's a specific vibe.
Obviously earlier you had mentioned impressions, and obviously right now we're in a very sticky area with the implementation of AI and such, and obviously there's a recent controversy with the implementation of an AI voice of James Earl Jones in the recent Fortnite season, and of course you guys are on strike with the gaming industry, so my question to you is, how do you feel as a performer seeing where AI is headed, and what are your hopes for the future of this implementation of the technology?
I mean, I don't love it. I don't. I'm sure there's a place for AI, and we haven't figured it out yet. There are places in the, obviously in the medical field, people who can't talk and who have, are nonverbal. There's a way to use it to communicate that I think is awesome. But for people who just want to, like, seeing on Instagram and stuff all the art, and it's just like, look, I made this art of this Star Wars thing, and it's like, you didn't make shit. That is other people's stuff you're stealing and repurposing, and that stuff makes me crazy. But like for voice acting, it's tough because we're basically arguing for what is human. Like, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a performer? What does it mean to be a worker of any kind? And AI is quickly devaluing not just actors, but anyone in any field who has a human. It's weird because for the first time it's not like 2D and then CG, where there's still an artist behind it. We're arguing for like what it essentially means, like I said, to be human. So it's scary and it's weird, and we need some sort of, I don't know if regulations is the right word, but like, we can't just let it run rampant otherwise. What was that?
Said some guardrails.
Yeah, we definitely need some guardrails. Otherwise, people are just going to be like, here's another AI character that I came up with, and it sounds like a terrible robot. Or it sounds great, and no one can tell, and everyone loses the empathy for what it means to be, a performer, which is scarier. Because I know that people, sorry not to talk too long about this, but like, people always say like, oh, that AI looks like crap, it's got 5 fingers or whatever, and it's like, very quickly that's going to go away, and then people really won't be able to tell, and that's even scarier than being able to point out and go, that looks fake. So yeah, as a voice actor, it's terrifying. I hate it, I don't like it, and I hope it goes away, but it won't. So we have to figure out a way to find some way to live with it, unfortunately. But I'd be okay if someone just went, delete.
Yeah.
So speaking of acting and voice acting, there has been a lot of debate within the community about voice actors and if they are actually acting when they are doing their craft versus an actual actor that is on camera. I would love to know, what is your take, since you are a voice actor, what is your take on that? Are you an actor, or are you just something?
Oh man, I mean, I don't know if I've heard that specifically about voice acting. I know I've heard it for performance capture. Is that what you mean, or you mean just voice acting?
Well, all of it in general, because like I've interviewed voice actors from across the pond, and they're like, we are not voice actors, we're just actors. And then they also brought up the motion capturing thing as well. So it's kind of like all inclusive in that sense.
So it's weird because I know there's an argument for like, hey, performance capture or for motion capture in video games. They're saying that isn't acting, but I mean, I disagree with that. As someone who's had to do that a lot, you're trying to figure out a way to emote, even if it's not you know, sometimes like God of War, Sonny, who's the Atreus, like I did a lot of his performance stuff when he was at school or he wasn't available. And it's like, you still have to be there and act. It's not a auto-generated thing. Like, otherwise I'd just be in a T-pose, just like floating around the stage. You know, it is acting. I know it's a bit weird because I think a lot of companies want to be like, that's not acting. We just pop whatever we want in there, but it is. And then for voice acting, I mean, yeah, it's acting. Of course it is. It's weird because I feel like in the U.S. more than anywhere else, people make the differentiate between like I am a voice actor, whereas like I feel like in the UK and stuff are like I'm an actor. I also do voice stuff, but I mean it's acting. I don't know. There's not much of a difference other than the fact that we get to wear comfy clothes and not be on a set at 4 a.m. But yeah, I don't know how to. Yeah, it's acting. Anyone who says differently is a jerk. You're back. Oh, you're part of this too. Hi.
Yes.
You're so quiet back there.
Would you consider yourself a geek? And
Yes.
what's your nerdy origin story? Like, what got you into being a geek?
Yes, I would consider myself a geek. Too much. So, what's my origin story? I mean, God, my dad would show me. I mean, one of the Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Back to the Future, and you know, I'm currently wearing my replica Indiana Jones Alden 404 boots. So it's like, it runs deep. My origin story is just a father who would show me things on VHS and just be like, look, I love this, you love this now. And I was like, I do love this. But comics we would go to, there was a place where he'd go to like this tobacco shop. It was the first comic shop I'd ever gone to where it was like, he would buy like pipe tobacco and then there was one of those racks, like the spinny racks of comic books. So I just had to get whatever was there. It'd be like a Jurassic Park comic or The Mask or something. And it was like, you just get whatever random ass issue. And so, yeah, I mean, God, I spent so much of my time just like running around in the woods with like a little crappy jump rope pretending to be indie, or, you know, taking a shower curtain rod and sawing it, and my parents yelling at me and be like, what are you doing? I'd be like, I'm building a lightsaber. I have scars on my hands from being a kid and literally doing that, like stealing my dad's tools to make lightsabers, and yeah. So it's any specific question? I mean, X-Men obviously was a huge thing, but what about you? I don't get an answer. Okay, go ahead.
So you have taken over the role of so many legendary characters that were voiced by other legendary actors like Phil Lamar, David Fielding, Power Rangers. Have you been able to meet any of these former voices of the characters that you now voice?
Yeah, Phil Lamar. Who am I taking over for Phil Lamar? Did he do Gambit? And was that in X-Men Evolution, or was it in
X-Men in the War?
I've never seen
in X-Men.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. But Phil's has been really lovely. I've met him a handful of times, and he's really sweet. He was standing in front of me at a grocery store once, and I was too nervous to say hi, so I tweeted at him. And he was like, "Next time, say hi." And I was like, "Okay." So I told him that when I saw him in Chicago. But yeah, I've gotten to meet Chris Potter, who was the original Gambit. We only got to speak very briefly. And I'm trying to think of who. I didn't get to meet Michael J. Fox, but we got to do a scene together in Back to the Future, which was really cool. He was busy filming a show, so he couldn't do the game. But then he got to come back as like Marty's great uncle or something, and then as spoilers, but the game's like 14 years old. He comes back as a future Marty. I'm trying to think of God. I did meet Harrison Ford, but way before I voiced any of his stuff. I was just a dumb kid. I'm trying to think of anyone else. I've run into a handful of people, and it's always a little interesting, but hopefully they don't hate me.
Last question.
Speaking of voicing previous characters, I know you just did Tales of the Underworld, voicing a younger version of Cad Bane. You did a really good job. I'm curious, how did you craft that voice, and what was it like even just like booking the project?
So it's funny, Lindsay Halpert, who's the casting person over at Lucasfilm, just was like, do you want to do this? And I was like, what is this? And she was like, it's a young Cad Bane. And I was like, yeah, okay. And she was just like, come on in. And I was like, well, you don't want to hear me do it? She's like, no, we trust you. And I was like, okay, which is awesome. I've been working with them for a while, and all the Lucasfilm people are really, really sweet. The animation people I've thankfully gotten to know, and they're really nerdy and lovely. And it was basically she just went, come on in, and so I had worked on my Cad Bane. I kind of talked to her a little bit where I was like, I had worked on sort of again like, hello little lady, like he's got that sort of, Corey Burton sound, and I was like, let's start there and sort of build our way down to younger, and they just kept going younger, until eventually I was like, hey, yeah, well, I got, like he had, I tried to retain some of that, there's a nasal quality or like a cowboy-esque quality to that voice, but he's so much younger that it doesn't retain too much of that sound. So we just kept going younger and younger, and Dave Filoni was there directing. We basically just found it on the day, because he's so far removed from the character that he becomes that I was able to almost do sort of a Marty McFly, which was fun, and there's just a little bit of a twang that he's got. It's just a touch of it, but they didn't want too much because they didn't want to give it away right away. Though I think every fan that saw it went, that's a young Cad Bane, like right away. But then, yeah, it was basically just us sort of workshopping it on the day, which is scary because you've got Dave Filoni and the Lucasfilm team just going, all right, do Cad Bane as a kid. Yeah, and I just kept thinking of Corey because I've worked with Corey before, and I was like, I hope he doesn't hate me. But it was a pretty young version, so I don't know if that was something. It was he's got a deep voice. But yeah, what was the question? What was it like? Scary.
Oh no, yeah, no,
it's always scary. Yeah.
You got it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Alright, and can you also tell anybody that is watching from our outlet how they can follow you and keep up to where your upcoming projects and where they can find you?
Sure. It's just my name, AJ _LOCASCIO on Instagram, and that's kind of all I use. Twitter sucks. But and yeah, that's kind of it. Just follow me there, and it'll be random stupid photos of my dogs and things that I think are funny.
Awesome.